Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear, no one saw coming. She dropped her sunglasses. That's the first thing I remember. She was walking barefoot along the shoreline, laughing into her phone, twirling a lock of her hair like she used to do when she was lying. The tide rolled in, smooth and lazy, and just as she passed the old wooden pier, she looked up, and saw me. And that's when everything about her body changed. The casual sway of her hips, the fake warmth in her voice, the carefree strut, gone. Her jaw clenched. She stopped walking. Her hand, mid-gesture, dropped like it forgot what to do. And those sunglasses she always wore to hide behind fell right into the sand. She wasn't supposed to see me again. Not here. Not ever. She thought I had disappeared for good, and honestly, so did I. But the thing about silence. It doesn't erase betrayal. It feeds it. And after 3 years of holding my tongue, it was finally time for her to see what that silence had turned me into. You think I'm dramatic? Fine. Maybe I am. But you weren't the one left staring at an empty apartment with one toothbrush missing and a divorce letter signed in lavender-scented ink. You didn't read the last message she ever sent me, 5 words that hollowed out my chest like a dull knife. Don't hate me. I'm free. She left on a Wednesday. Told me she was heading to a wellness retreat with her sister. Said she needed to reconnect with herself. I didn't argue. I even packed her yoga mat into the trunk. That same night, I got a DM from someone I didn't know, an old classmate of hers. No greeting. No emojis. Just a grainy photo taken through the window of a beach bar 2 states away. She wasn't alone. She was kissing a man who wasn't me. A man she used to call a nobody. A man who had once slept on our couch after getting dumped by his fiancée. A man who cried on my shoulder over cheap beer while she whispered from the kitchen, "He's a lost puppy, be kind." Yeah. That puppy had his hands on her lower back while she laughed into his neck. That was the last time I slept in my own bed. And now, here we were, on the same stretch of sand, 3 years later. Her face pale, her eyes locked on mine like she just saw a ghost with unfinished business. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because what happened next? She wasn't ready for it. None of them were. She blinked first. And that told me everything I needed to know. Delilah, yes, her, wasn't used to being speechless. She was a master of distractions. Of staged tears. Of spinning the narrative so fast that you'd start apologizing before realizing you were the one betrayed. But on that beach, standing only a few feet away from the man she discarded like last year's fashion trend, she was frozen. I thought about walking away again. Honestly, I did. It would have been the cleaner choice. The poetic one. You know, the whole, he walks off into the sunset while she stares in regret ending. But this wasn't a movie. And her betrayal didn't deserve a cinematic bow. She didn't deserve peace. She deserved the truth, raw, unfiltered, and far worse than she remembered. I took a step toward her. She flinched. That amused me more than it should have. The Delilah I once knew would have smirked, tossed her hair, and said something like, "Wow, Owen, you clean up nicely. Florida suits your ghost phase." But not this time. She was off balance, and I had no intention of helping her stand. "I didn't recognize you," she mumbled. Her voice cracked. "You look different." Yeah. That happens when someone shatters your insides and you spend 1,000 days trying to piece yourself back together in the middle of nowhere with nothing but shame and silence for company. But I didn't say that out loud. I just let her squirm. "I thought you moved to Colorado," she added, eyes scanning me like I might vanish again. "You thought wrong." I said it flatly. No anger. No emotion. Just a fact she wasn't prepared to hear. And I could see it, clear as day, that tiny flicker of panic in her chest. Not guilt. Not grief. Fear. Because in that moment, she remembered something I wasn't supposed to know. Something she buried so deep under her fake apologies and staged tears that even she had probably convinced herself it was forgotten. But I remembered. I remembered everything. Like the red envelope I found under the passenger seat 2 days before she left. The one with 2 concert tickets. One had her name. The other? Not mine. Or the second hotel receipt I discovered in our shared email, hidden under the alias, D. Winters. A name she used once during a party game when someone asked, "What would your fake ID name be?" We laughed about it at the time. I didn't laugh when I found the confirmation for a 2-night stay in Miami, dated exactly 1 week before her retreat. She gaslit me when I asked about it. Said I was paranoid. Said the email must have been spam. "You need to trust me," she whispered into my neck that night. "You're imagining things again." No. I was finally seeing things clearly. That was the problem. And now, she stood in front of me again, not knowing how much I'd uncovered after I left. Not knowing that in the years since, I hadn't just moved on, I'd documented everything. Every lie. Every transaction. Every name. Because I knew this day would come. And now, I wasn't just Owen, the quiet husband she ghosted. I was Owen, the man who'd built a quiet case of truth she could no longer outrun. "I have nothing to say," she whispered. "I'm not here for your words," I replied. She looked down, maybe to hide her face. Maybe because she couldn't stand to meet the eyes of the man she once broke for fun. But then, she noticed what I was holding in my hand, folded, weathered, a little stained by time, the photo. The photo. Her eyes widened like they did that night I showed up at her office party and caught her trying to pull her hand out of her coworker's too slowly. Like she was caught in a storm she thought had passed. "You kept that?" I nodded. "You never buried it deep enough." Her lip trembled. "Why are you here?" "Because I want you to see it," I said quietly. "The consequences. The real ones. Not the Instagram version of your life where you get to pretend none of it happened." I tucked the photo back into my journal and turned around. She didn't follow. She didn't call my name. She just stood there, barefoot in the sand, like the tide might wash away what I'd just dug up. But some things don't get washed away. Some things stay stuck to you, especially the lies you told and the people you stepped on to keep them hidden. I didn't plan on seeing her again, let alone speaking to her. But when you spend 3 years dragging a memory behind you like a corpse tied to your ankle, you start to realize you'll never be free until you face it. Until she sees it. Not the version she convinced herself of, the one where I just couldn't handle the marriage, or where I walked away because of my insecurities. No. The real version. The one where I saw her for exactly who she was, and left before she could finish the job of hollowing me out. As I walked away from that beach, I felt her eyes on my back. I could feel the weight of the questions building in her throat. But she stayed frozen in place. She didn't call out. Maybe she knew I wouldn't stop. Maybe she was afraid of what I'd say if I did. I went straight to the small motel nearby, where I had a single room and a single purpose. I hadn't booked it randomly. That entire weekend was orchestrated. She thought she ran into me. In reality, she walked right into it. I still had the journal. Leather-bound, worn down, filled with pages most people would never believe came from someone like me. But when you spend your entire marriage being gaslit, manipulated, and made to feel insane for noticing the truth, you start writing everything down. It's your only proof you weren't crazy. Inside the journal were names. Dates. Locations. Screenshots. Photos. Letters I never sent. Voicemails I transcribed. I even had the original wedding card from her mother, the one that said, "You finally found someone safe. Don't ruin this, honey." Yeah, I kept everything. Call it obsession. Call it trauma. Call it survival. But I knew one day the truth would need to be unboxed. That night, I slept like I hadn't in years. The next morning, I woke up to a knock. 3 soft taps. I didn't look through the peephole. I already knew who it was. Delilah always knocked like she was asking permission to cause chaos. I opened the door and found her standing there, arms wrapped around herself, lips pressed tight like she was trying not to cry before she even said a word. She looked older. Not tired, just worn. Like someone who knew the mask didn't fit anymore. She spoke first. "I don't know what you want from me." I stepped aside, letting her in. "You came. That's already more than you did when I left." She hesitated but walked inside. Same perfume. Same fake confidence. But I noticed her hands were trembling. "I couldn't sleep," she muttered. "Because you saw me, or because you remembered what you did?" She flinched. "You don't understand." "No," I cut her off. "I finally do. And that's why you're here." I opened the journal and flipped to a page marked with a ribbon. It was a printed message, paper-clipped to the corner. A Facebook post. One I wasn't supposed to see. But screenshots are a beautiful thing. Delilah and her affair partner, his name was Graham, had joined a private group for emotional healing after divorce. Cute, right? Except in one of the comments, someone asked, "What triggered the end of your marriage?" And there it was. Her reply. "My ex-husband was boring. I needed more. I don't regret anything except not leaving sooner." That was the moment I stopped being sad and started being furious. I turned the journal around and slid it toward her across the table. "You said you wanted honesty," I said. "Start reading." She stared at it like it was radioactive. "What is this?" This is what it looked like from my side of the glass. She didn't want to read it. I could see it. She didn't want to relive what she did or what I endured in silence while she played the victim in curated photos and pity-drenched posts. But she opened the first page anyway. She read about the night I followed her Uber receipt to a downtown hotel. About the time I found the necklace she claimed was just a gift from a friend. About the card I intercepted, the anniversary card meant for him, not me. With every turn of the page, her face changed. Her excuses started fading. Her mouth opened a few times, like she wanted to interrupt, to rewrite the script, but she didn't. Because even she knew she couldn't spin this. I watched her hands shake. Then she reached the last page I marked, the one with the final photograph. Her and Graham. Not kissing. Not holding hands. Just smiling. At a small courthouse. Holding what looked like a marriage certificate. I leaned back. "You married him." She blinked slowly. "It was complicated." "No. It was simple. You lied, you left, you moved on. And now you're here. Why?" She didn't answer right away. She stared down at the photo like it had teeth. Then she whispered, "He's gone." "Gone where?" "Left me. Last month." I didn't react. Not on the outside. But inside? I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Closure. No. Not yet. But it was coming. She stood there in my motel room like the floor might swallow her. I'd never seen her like that before, not during our marriage, not during our fights, not even when I left. Delilah, the woman who once rolled her eyes when I cried, now stared at the photo of her courthouse wedding like it was evidence in a criminal case. Which, in a way, it was. Just not the way she thought. "He left me," she said again, softer this time. Like maybe the repetition would somehow make me feel sympathy. But I didn't. Not anymore. Did he leave before or after your birthday? I asked, already knowing the answer. She blinked. After. How did you? I saw the post. He gave you a weekend in Charleston and a gold bracelet. You posted it with that ridiculous caption. What was it again? I paused, as if searching, but I already knew it by heart. Some people come into your life and show you what love really feels like. She winced. You're really still watching me? No, I replied coldly. I watched you back then because I needed closure. Now I just study you like a puzzle I already solved. Her shoulders slumped. He wasn't who I thought he was. Neither were you. That hit harder than I expected. Her lips parted, then closed. She looked smaller now, like something had finally cracked through her armor. But I didn't let up. Not yet. So let me get this straight, I continued. You cheated on me with someone you said was harmless. You lied. You gaslit. You walked away and didn't look back. You married him in under a year. Then he left you. And now, you're standing in front of me. Why? What do you want from me, Delilah? She sat down on the edge of the bed without asking. That used to annoy me, how she never asked. She always took space like she owned it. I don't know what I want, she said. I think when I saw you yesterday, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like everything I buried came up at once. I stared at her, waiting. But she didn't continue. You're not here for an apology, I said. You don't believe in apologies. She nodded slowly. Maybe I don't. But I believe in consequences now. That got my attention. Not because I believed her. But because I was finally starting to see it, what she was really here for. Not to fix things. Not to own what she did. She was here because someone else had finally done to her what she did to me. I found his phone one night, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He had pictures of a girl. Younger. Coworker. Same story I told you. I didn't flinch. I wanted to. But I'd already suspected it. He told me I was too emotional. That I made him feel guilty for having fun. That I was suffocating him. I nodded slowly. And now you're reliving my role. Tears welled up in her eyes, but no part of me moved to comfort her. I wasn't that guy anymore. The guy who sacrificed his needs to make her comfortable in her cruelty. The guy who believed every manipulated tear. She wiped her face. I hated you when you left, you know. 4 months. I told everyone you were unstable. That you just broke down and ran. But deep down, I knew. I knew what I did to you. I leaned forward. Then why didn't you say anything? She didn't hesitate. Because I thought you'd moved on. And I didn't want to feel smaller than I already did. We sat in silence for a long moment. Her eyes drifted to the journal again. The one still open on the table. Pages marked with pain she never had the courage to witness when it mattered. I don't want anything from you, she whispered. Not really. I wanted you to know I see it now. All of it. What I did. What I became. What I lost. That was the moment I realized she wasn't here to win me back. She was here because guilt doesn't go away when you bury it. It rots. It leaks into your new life and ruins everything you try to build. And now she was drowning in it. I stood up and walked to the door. Not to kick her out. Not yet. But to make it clear who held the exit this time. She looked up, panic flickering in her expression. You're not going to forgive me, are you? I shook my head. No. But I'm not here to punish you either. Then what are you here for? I paused. Looked her in the eye. To let you watch me walk away again. Only this time, it's not because I'm broken. She didn't leave after I opened the door. She sat there like a person clinging to the edge of a cliff, hoping for a hand that wasn't coming. And I let her stay in that silence, not to be cruel, but because I wanted her to sit in the mess she created without distraction, without rescue. I'm not proud of anything I did, she finally said, breaking the stillness. But I'm not proud of how you left, either. I closed the door. You think I left to punish you? I think you left to hurt me. And it worked. I laughed, quietly, bitterly. No, Delilah. I left because staying meant destroying myself one passive-aggressive comment at a time. Because you didn't just cheat. You erased me while I was still in the room. That silenced her. I could see it sinking in. For once, she wasn't thinking of a way to spin the moment or make herself the victim. She just stared at the floor like it had answers. I never got closure, she muttered. No. You never gave it. She looked up then, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I married, the one who used to lie next to me on the floor while we listened to records, talking about the kind of life we'd build. Before the parties. Before the secrets. Before I became background noise in my own home. I didn't know how to stop lying, she admitted. It became a habit. I'd tell one and then have to tell 3 more just to keep the first one alive. I nodded slowly. And somewhere in there, you forgot who you were lying to. She nodded, too. Mostly myself. That was the first thing she said all day that felt honest. I sat down across from her. Not to reconnect. Not to soften. But because I had more to say, and she needed to hear it all. After I left, I stayed in a town you've never heard of. I worked at a bookstore part-time and drew at night. I made coffee for people who didn't know my name, and I liked it that way. I went months without talking to anyone about you. But that didn't mean I forgot. I remembered everything, especially the little details. Like the way you used to shut down every time I brought up anything emotional. How you could cry during a sad commercial but couldn't say, "I'm sorry," without turning it into a joke. I didn't know how to be close to you, she whispered. You were too good. Too kind. It made me feel small. I raised an eyebrow. So you cheated to feel bigger. She winced. I cheated because I was selfish. And weak. And I thought you'd always forgive me. Ah. There it was. The confession I'd been waiting for since the day she walked out of our apartment with nothing but her yoga bag and a lie. You thought I was safe, I said. Predictable. You wanted the thrill without the consequences. And then I gave you something you weren't ready for, silence. She looked at me like she wanted to say yes. Like she finally saw what I'd become in her absence, not angry, not broken, just finished. I think about you every day, she whispered. I didn't respond. I wouldn't give her the echo she wanted. Instead, I reached into my backpack and pulled out a letter. Handwritten. Folded once. I'd written it 2 years ago but never mailed it. At the time, I thought it was therapy. Now, it was closure. I slid it across the table. Read it when you get back to whatever life you've built. She stared at the letter like it might burn her fingertips. What is it? It's the version of me that begged for answers. The version you ignored. The man who waited for you to care. He died the day you married someone else. But I kept his voice, just long enough to give it back to you. She didn't touch the envelope. Instead, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said something I didn't expect. I didn't just lose Graham. I lost my job. My apartment. My savings. Everything I built with him collapsed overnight. And all I could think was, maybe this is what I deserve. For a long second, I didn't feel anything. Not pity. Not anger. Not even satisfaction. Then I said, calmly, losing everything isn't the same as learning anything. And with that, I stood up. Her eyes followed me, but her body didn't. She stayed seated, as if moving would make it real. "You're really walking out again?" she asked. I didn't even turn around. "No. This time I'm leaving." I didn't slam the motel door when I left. I didn't even look back. I walked down the sun-bleached corridor, past the faded vending machine and the rusted-out ice bucket, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Not because she finally admitted what she did, or because she said she lost everything, but because I knew that none of it had anything to do with me anymore. She wasn't mine. And I wasn't hers. Not even in memory. The world had kept turning after I left her. That was the cruel part. The most honest part. She thought I'd be frozen in place, still licking wounds while she posted carefully filtered pictures with her new life and her new man. But the thing about silence? It gives you time to build. Not just walls. Not just defenses. But purpose. After I left her sitting with that letter, something she probably still hadn't opened, I drove 30 minutes out of town to a quiet diner called Marley's. It's the kind of place where the waitress knows your name by the second visit, and the pie never runs out. But that wasn't why I went there. It's where I met her. The real her. And yes, I know what you're thinking: rebound, right? Wrong. Eliza wasn't someone I ran to. She was someone I slowly grew toward, like sun through fog. I didn't fall for her because she healed me. I fell because, for the first time in years, I didn't have to shrink to be loved. I didn't have to beg for emotional crumbs or explain why basic respect wasn't optional. Eliza didn't rescue me. She saw me. That was enough. She was already at the booth when I arrived. 2 cups of coffee. A small smile. The kind of simplicity Delilah would have rolled her eyes at. "You okay?" Eliza asked as I slid into the seat. "Better than I expected," I said honestly. I didn't have to explain why. Eliza knew about Delilah. Not every detail, but enough. Enough to understand why I disappeared for 3 years. Why I flinched every time someone raised their voice or said, "I was just joking." Enough to know that closure wasn't about getting even. It was about becoming someone she couldn't touch anymore. We talked for an hour. About everything and nothing. The weather. Her new job. The poem I was working on. And then, as casually as if she were asking for the time, she said, "Did she say what she came for?" I nodded. She wanted to be seen. Not forgiven. Just acknowledged. Eliza tilted her head. "And did you?" "Enough to make sure she never comes back." She smiled, proud but quiet. Then she leaned in and said something I'll never forget. "You know she's going to spiral, right? You were her safety net, even if she burned it." "I'm not her net anymore," I replied. "I'm the reason she finally hit the ground." And I meant it. Because what Delilah didn't realize was that people like her don't change when they get caught. They change when the story they've been telling themselves finally collapses. And I didn't collapse. I survived. That ruins people like her more than rage ever could. Later that night, back at the motel, I found the envelope I had given her sitting outside my door, unopened. She hadn't read the letter. Or maybe she couldn't. Maybe reading the truth written in my own hand was a level of honesty she still wasn't ready for. I didn't bring it back inside. I left it where it was. The next morning, it was gone. Did she come back for it? Did the wind carry it off? Or did someone else find it, some stranger who read it and wondered who the hell we were? It didn't matter. That letter was never really for her anyway. It was for me. And I didn't need it anymore. As I packed up my bag and walked out of that motel for the last time, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry. Not at her. Not at myself. Not even at the years I lost. I was free. And that, for the first time in a long time, felt real. I thought I was done. That walking away from the motel, from her, from the unread letter was the final move. That what we shared had finally become dust, something blown off the table of my life. But closure is never about walking away. It's about knowing that if the past comes knocking again, it can't find a way back in. And unfortunately for me, the past had one more surprise waiting. It started with a voicemail. Blocked number. No name. Just silence at first. Then a voice. Hers. I know I shouldn't have come. I know I shouldn't be calling now. But, you didn't let me explain everything. There's something I need to tell you. About that last year. About Graham. About what I found after you left. I don't know if it matters anymore. But it's not what you think. I deleted the voicemail. Then I recovered it. Then I listened to it again. And I hated myself for caring even a little. I told myself it was nothing. That she was trying to stir chaos again, just like she used to, leave just enough unsaid to pull me back in, to keep me wondering. But deep down, I felt something shift. Not trust. Not hope. Just curiosity. The kind that comes before a wound is fully closed. The kind that can reopen everything if you're not careful. I knew I had to shut that door, not with silence this time, but with certainty. So I opened my laptop and pulled up the archive folder. The one with the saved screenshots, message logs, emails, all the digital artifacts of the unraveling of our marriage. I'd been collecting it for years, not out of spite, but because part of me needed to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it all. When you've been manipulated long enough, even your own memory becomes suspect. But I wasn't looking through them for pain anymore. I was looking for leverage. Not to use against her. To use for myself. Because there was one thing she never knew, something I never told her. During those final months, when everything was falling apart and she thought I was too numb to notice. I recorded one conversation. Just one. The night I found the second hotel receipt. She came home at 2:14 a.m., heels in hand, hair tangled, and a smirk on her face like the world was hers to play with. I asked her where she'd been. She laughed. Out. Don't wait up next time. It makes you look desperate. Then she walked to the kitchen and poured herself a drink like I didn't exist. Like I was the butler of her convenience, not her husband. And I stood there, holding my phone in my pocket, recording her voice as she muttered under her breath. I don't even know why he still tries. If he had any self-respect, he'd be gone by now. That recording was still in my drive. Untouched. Forgotten. But now, it pulsed with new energy. It wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. A reminder of who she really was when the mask slipped. And hearing it again didn't hurt, it clarified. It stripped away the leftover sympathy I didn't realize I still had clinging to the edges of my chest like ivy. She wasn't reaching out now because of guilt. She was reaching out because Graham had left her shattered, and I was the only person who still held her unedited truth. She thought maybe there was a version of me who'd still chase that last thread. But there wasn't. That Owen, the one who clung to memories and let her rewrite history, was gone. So I made one final choice. I mailed her a copy of the recording. On a USB drive. No note. No return address. Just the unvarnished version of her voice in the dead of night, confessing more in a mutter than she ever did to my face. I didn't need a reaction. I didn't want a phone call. I didn't even care if she listened to it. I sent it for me. Because closure isn't peace. It's power. The power to know that the truth still exists, even when the liar no longer does. And once I dropped that envelope in the mail, I walked back to the car, started the engine, and whispered the two words I had waited 3 years to say. I'm done. Not as a statement. As a fact. It's strange how quietly life moves on when you finally stop chasing the echoes. The morning after I mailed that envelope, I woke up without anxiety for the first time in I don't even know how long. It wasn't like some movie scene where the sun spills in dramatically or birds sing outside your window. It was normal. Plain. Quiet. And that's what made it perfect. Delilah never called again. I don't know if she listened to the recording. I don't know if she threw it away. But deep down, I believe she did listen. And not because she wanted to understand what she lost, but because she needed to hear her own voice stripped of excuses. But her reaction? That wasn't my responsibility anymore. In the weeks that followed, I didn't keep rechecking my phone. I didn't scan social media to see if she posted something cryptic. I didn't pace the floor wondering if I did the right thing. Instead, I started sketching again. I taught my first community class in years. Eliza and I went hiking upstate and got caught in the rain halfway down the trail. We didn't run for cover. We laughed, soaked to the skin, and let the moment happen. That was the real shift, not revenge, not justice, but joy without condition. I wasn't the man she left anymore. I was the man who had finally come back to himself. And the beautiful part? That closure I spent years searching for didn't come from her. It came the second I stopped needing her to provide it. I thought this story would end with a confrontation. Or a dramatic breakdown. Or some poetic last word that made her cry. But it didn't. It ended with me sitting on a park bench, drinking coffee, looking up at the sky, and realizing I felt light. Not because she said sorry. But because I stopped asking her to. And if you've been through something like this, maybe that's the part you need to hear most. You don't need the apology. You don't need the last word. You don't need them to see what they did to you. You just need to heal anyway. Thanks for sticking through this journey with me. If anything in this story reminded you of a moment from your own life, a betrayal, a reckoning, or a moment of strength you never expected from yourself, share it in the comments. Let's keep this space real. And hey, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. There's more where this came from. This was Reddit Confessions. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and don't be afraid to walk away from what no longer sees your worth.